Well, hello everybody, it's Terry Walsh. I'm glad to be back with you. It is Thursday, September 3rd. I'm finally back in the office now after being quarantined at home for 10 days. So I'm so glad to be back at the village and with all of you. I saw some of you this morning lining up for your breakfast and your coffee, and it was good to see everybody again. It was like coming home all over again. Just to give you an update on my family situation. My younger son did test positive for COVID-19, and so he did have some minor symptoms for the first few days, a sore throat. He had a slightly elevated temperature, but he's a young, healthy, strong kid, and that was over pretty quickly. And so for the last week or so, he's just been bored and doing schoolwork from home remotely. His entire senior class, in fact, was quarantined. And they all get to go back to school physically, back to school tomorrow on Friday, back to their classes. So he's very excited about that. The entire senior class at his high school is excited about that. My wife may have had a few symptoms. We never tested her, but she's fine now and has been for many days also. I never had any symptoms and I never tested positive, only tested negative for COVID-19. So I became the gopher and the helper at home pretty much for the last 10 days. So it's good to be back at work. A lot of things have happened, and I did obviously kept up with things and worked from home during the entire time. And I just wanted to give you some updates as to what's going on. As you know, we unfortunately snapped our record in terms of having 0 independent living residents who had tested positive for COVID-19. We did have one resident, and still now have one resident who is positive for COVID-19 in independent living. Now, this resident had gone to the hospital. It's probably been a little over 3 weeks ago now. And then, as is our protocol, when they come back from a hospital stay, they go into quarantine anyway in their apartment. So this resident had been in quarantine in their apartment already, and toward the end of the quarantine began showing some symptoms of COVID-19. We tested her and then found that they did come up positive for COVID-19. So all we had to do really was extend their quarantine in their unit, and so that's what they're doing now. It appears that their symptoms have been very, very minor. Not major symptoms at all, certainly nothing requiring a hospital visit or anything else. So they're doing fine. They're being monitored all the time, constantly by Amy Meek. They haven't left their apartment since even the time that they went to the hospital, so they've been quarantined the whole time. They haven't been anywhere in the village for a while. So that should be over soon. In the next several days, their quarantine should be over, and they'll be back in with everybody else and healed and ready to go. But as of this point in time, they have not been in the village doing anything other than staying quarantined in their apartment. And all seems to be well. They seem to be doing well, and we're glad that that's the case. You know, it's one thing to be at 0 numbers of residents in independent living with COVID-19. It's another thing to be able to respond appropriately when we do have a positive test. And I think our staff did a wonderful job taking care of this resident. They're still taking care of that resident now. They seem to be doing fine. They're being closely monitored and tended to by the chaplains and by Amy Meek and by food service and by everybody for the things that they need to make sure that they're still comfortable here in the village. So, you know, that's a testament as much as not getting COVID at all as what do we do when we do get it. And I think we've had a great response from the team, even in my absence from the campus. Done a great job for this particular resident, and I think they'll be back to normal operations here in the next several days when their second quarantine is finished, and then we'll be back. Overall, we're still doing well. We don't have any financial results yet for the month of August that just ended a few days ago. It usually takes us about 10 days to get all those books closed for the month of August, so we don't know where we landed in terms of August. But I will say that we did get a second round of government COVID money that we've been counting on. You might remember during the first month, the month of July, the first month of the fiscal year, We were $103,000 below budget, but we had also spent $103,000 on direct COVID-19 expenses, which includes the tests that we administer to our employees in the care center and in Fountain View, all of the hand sanitizing supplies, the screeners that we've had at the doors, and all of those other things, including personal protective equipment, PPE, that we have to maintain stock on for emergencies and other issues. So we didn't hit our budget in the first month of the year, which was July, and we had anticipated getting government funds again, and we did. So we have received government funds. However, the amount we received was not enough to continue paying for our expenses for COVID-19 into the future. It has essentially reimbursed us for what we had spent in July and hopefully in August, but then the money ran out again. So now we're still on our own dime moving forward from this point forward on the money that we spend to prevent COVID-19 from getting to the campus, for the screening and for everything else, including the employee testing. And so that's why we're tightening our belts a little bit, because we never know if we'll ever get more money from the government for COVID-19. So we have to tighten our own belts and control what we're spending even more, because it comes out of pocket until we know if we're getting the money back. So we were fortunate to get money back for what we spent in July and most of August. We don't know if we're going to get more into the future, so we're really tightening up to try to control what we're spending in the future. So that's why you see that the screeners have gone away at the doors in the crossing and in the clubhouse, because that was an extra expense. We felt it was necessary at the time, and the government did reimburse us for that as part of the funds that we were spending. But since we don't know if we're going to get reimbursed in the future, we decided to do that a little bit more efficiently and ask the concierge and ask the receptionists at those doors to do the screening instead of hiring additional people to do that. And I think we're at a point now where everybody's into the routine of what to do when they come in the doors and to get screened. So I think the risk is pretty minimal for us missing somebody, but it will help save us a lot of money in terms of what we were spending for COVID-19. The other major expense, though, for COVID-19 that we've really got to manage and control are the cost of testing our employees in the care center and in assisted living. There is a state and county regulation on how many times we have to conduct blanket testing for the employees, for the residents too, but for the employees in those two areas, not in independent living, but in assisted living and in the care center. So we are looking for the most efficient way that we can do that to make sure that all of our employees are tested the way they're supposed to be tested, and no more and no less. So we are working on that. We're trying to find the most cost-effective testing process and the people who can process those lab tests in the most cost-effective way. So we're working very hard. If we're going to have to pay for that out of pocket, we want to make sure we're doing it in as smart a way as we possibly can. You've seen around the campus the continued improvements in the construction areas, the landscaping that's going in around the new care center. I think it's gorgeous down there. I'm going to be able to walk around and see some of that stuff today. I've heard all about it, and I've heard some great stories about how great it's looking. It's not finished yet. I have heard from some of you that it looks a little sparse, but it's not over yet. They're only about halfway finished with all the landscaping. So there'll be more going in the care center, but I'm told by Jill that the inside of the care center is about 75 to 80% complete. The rooms are painted, the hallways are prepared. They're beginning to put down the flooring, which is part of the last thing they do, is the flooring and then the baseboard around the bottom. So that's beginning to happen on the first floor and then moving up in the building. So it's getting pretty exciting over there to watch it all come together. It's starting to look like the world-class care center that we bought in the whole process. Speaking of the process, we're doing well financially. One of the things we are working on, though, and you may or may not have seen it or even perceived it, is the connection between the new care center and Fountain View that goes down the slope to the new chapel that'll be shared by the care center and Fountain View Assisted Living. While the slope, the connector, actually meets ADA requirements. It's still a tenuous trip because it's a long ramp, which I would liken to an indoor ski slope. And so we are working with the architects and engineers to try to figure out a better way to make that connector more useful and safe for our residents, because I don't want people tumbling down. Obviously, that connector, it's a long way, even though the slope is within regulations. It's just a really long slope, and I don't want anybody to lose control on that trip. So we are working with the architects and the engineers to come up with a better way to connect those buildings that will be easier to navigate for our residents, particularly those with walkers or wheelchairs or electric carts, because it's just a long ramp, and it's a little steep even though it's within regulation. It's just so long that we want to make sure that we do that a little bit better. So we might end up having to use a little bit of our leftover money to correct that problem, because you will be glad that we did after you try to navigate that ramp for the first time. So we are working on that. One of the other things that we're working on, and I appreciate the help of the resident council in this, by the way, is requesting a certificate of need or bed licenses for the remainder of the beds in our care center. So in the care center, in the new one, we're expanding in number of beds from 118 beds to 144 beds because of the demand, not only in the village, but off campus as well. And we know that we'll be able to use those beds, but the plan has been over time to, what we say, creep those numbers of bed licenses over time in order to be able to use all 144 beds. It is a very competitive environment to get the state to grant us additional bed licenses. It's rarely done, in fact, by the state. We have to go to Jefferson City and testify in front of the CON committee, the Certificate of Need Committee, and convince them to give us more bed licenses. And we could be opposed by our competitors who don't want us to have more beds in our care center because they want to use the beds that they have in their care center. And so it's always a competitive process, and it's hard to get. And so the technique we were going to be using was creeping them over time, just simply by having enough occupancy in the building. Every couple of years you can add 10% more beds without any competition. But because of COVID-19 and the restrictions that nursing homes have, and particularly nursing homes that are heavy with semi-private rooms like our current care center is, we know that there's a need to have more private rooms in the community where the rules on 14-day quarantines for patients coming out of the hospital aren't a problem in a private room, but they are a problem in a semi-private room, because the second bed in that room then can't be used while the other person is under quarantine. So it has artificially restricted our occupancy in our care center, and it's doing the same thing for all nursing homes that are semi-private rooms. And so building a brand new care center as we are, which is predominantly private rooms as it is, would actually cancel that problem for us and for the community, and open up more beds for patients coming out of the hospital all around the community, not just here at Friendship Village, but all around the community, and provide more beds for people being discharged out of the hospital with their Medicare Type A hip replacements or shoulder replacements or other therapies that they might need. So we're requesting the other 26 bed licenses all together all at once now. And of course, part of that process is getting letters of support from our elected officials, and one of those other letters comes from the resident population and the resident council, which has obliged us and has also written a letter of support to request the rest of the 26 beds, rather than taking a two or 3 year period to bring them in small groups over time. We're asking for the whole thing now, right up front. And so those letters of support are very helpful, and we appreciate that the resident population has done that and written a letter for us also. You have heard, generally speaking, you've heard the results of the resident satisfaction survey. I think I told you earlier that I was pleasantly surprised and shocked and in awe, really, that overall, our independent living resident satisfaction actually went up, even during COVID-19. From last year, went up from 94 to 96%. I was absolutely stunned and pleased, of course, to see that result, even with the restrictions that we've had to impose on everybody for COVID-19. So I want to thank you for that. Now, that's not to say that we don't have areas that we need to work on. Within that global number of 96, there are other components in the satisfaction survey. Housekeeping and dining and all sorts of things that you rated during the survey. And so some of them did pop up with some areas that we need to improve, most definitely. And so we're beginning to work with our department directors on action plans for some of those things that will be able to help us erase those concerns that some of the residents had. So it's a continuous improvement process for us. So even though we got 96%, we're not done with that, because we want to make sure that we get into the weeds and try to find some of those other things that you identified for us that we need to do a little extra work on. So we're doing that. We also recently got the results back from our employee satisfaction survey. So we did two surveys at almost the same time. The other one that we did is our annual employee satisfaction survey. And I have to tell you, again, during COVID-19, the restrictions, not only on residents, but also the new protocols for our employees, the requirement to wear masks at work, the requirement to get their temperatures taken, try to refrain from hanging out with friends and family in a dangerous situation, perhaps off campus, all of those restrictions. And some of the other things that we've had to do to manage our employee population during COVID-19 have been very restrictive on our employees, me included. And so we didn't know what we were going to get on our employee satisfaction survey. But I have to tell you, again, similarly to our resident satisfaction survey, we scored even higher on our employee satisfaction survey again this year than we did last year. And I do want to call out special consideration our employee satisfaction in our care center, and in particular in food and beverage. In the care center, both made historic improvements in their employee satisfaction. It was an amazing thing to see over the satisfaction report from last year to this year. Those specific areas in the care center overall and in the food and beverage, the dining room overall in the care center, both made the biggest improvements over the last year. And that's a great thing to see. It's so hard to keep staff in the care centers right now. And every nursing home around the area, around the state, around the country, it's so hard to keep employees right now because the unemployment benefits are so rich. And you know that, you've been watching the news, that the government is offering additional unemployment benefits for workers who are unable to work due to COVID-19, and I understand that. But it also competes with us because we are not laying off workers. We need as many as we can get. We always do, and we're a 24-hour operation. And so we aren't laying off employees. We're always trying to find employees, but at the employees at the level, at the opening level and the ground level employees that we have, in many cases, the unemployment benefits are greater than what we can afford to pay them because of the additional supplemental unemployment checks that the government is giving them. So it's really hard to find employees, and particularly with kids staying home from school. Obviously, one of the parents want to be home with the kids, so we've got a double whammy, essentially, of parents who want to stay home with the kids, parents who can get more unemployment benefits than they can get money from working. Really makes it difficult for us to hire new employees at those rates. It's hard to compete with the government on those unemployment benefits. So that's a struggle for both us and in Chesterfield and every senior living community everywhere, because they still need the employees, but we're competing with the government benefits program in that regard. So we continue to do that. We continue to struggle really in trying to find as many employees as we need. We constantly need some anyway, but then with the expansion coming up and the opening of the new care center, we're going to need even more. So we're working on some creative ways to attract employees. There's no way we can afford to match the unemployment benefits. Now, we know the unemployment program and the benefits do expire over time, but it's just a tough row to hoe for us in terms of attracting employees and then retaining them because of the richness of the unemployment benefits. So that's a struggle for us. We're working on that constantly. Our human resources department and our recruiting staff and our other employees and those who refer their friends and family to us for employment, we certainly appreciate everything everybody's doing to bring potential employees to us, and we do everything we can to try to win them over and keep them on the staff. So I appreciate all of your help as residents to welcome employees, keep them happy, let them feel appreciated while they're here. Because that's very important to them. People would love to work in a place where they know that they're appreciated. And I certainly appreciate all of them. We can't do our work for you without them, but I would appreciate your help in that also, to express your appreciation to our employees for being here, because it's hard to find them, and we want them to know that because they're here, that we love them and that we appreciate them. I hope you're doing well. I hope everybody is doing well. We have a great campus here. We're working on our sales. It's a struggle also in the sales department because a lot of people out in the community aren't necessarily out looking around. And one of our difficulties is we're having trouble. We can't have some of the large prospective resident events that we used to have. We used to have luncheons or breakfasts at Tapawingo or other places to have some large events to talk about life care, talk about Friendship Village for people who may not have been exposed to us before, but because of the restrictions on large gatherings, we're not able to do that as much anymore. And so that has really inhibited our ability to reach a lot of people. So we're using some new technologies. We're using our website, we're using emails, we're using social media and some other things to try to reach potential residents here. You're helping us. I know some of you have already brought in several prospective residents, and we need that to continue. So please help us do that. We have a great record at Friendship Village in both campuses. As you know, our record for the COVID impact on our campuses has been significantly less than the COVID impact in the general population. It's a safe place to be. If you get it here, you know you're being well cared for and nursed back to health. And so if you know anybody who's afraid of being out in the community or living alone in their home or not sure what to do or how long this is going to go on, there's no better place to be than at Friendship Village, where people are here to take care of you and to make sure you have everything you need and to keep COVID-19 away from you. So I encourage you to talk to your friends from your old neighborhoods or from your church who aren't sure what to do next because they're concerned about COVID-19 and they're afraid to do things and go out and do the things that they need to do to maintain their home or their own livelihood. So bring them here. We are having small groups now. We're beginning to get smaller groups together for prospective residents to learn more about life care. Talk to our sales department. They can help guide you and help them understand what's available in terms of some of these smaller sessions. We're happy to do that. We're excited to do it. We want to do it, but we've got to do what we can to try to keep our apartments filled up. And we're taking a little bit of a dip in our occupancy. Right now, our occupancy across the campus in independent living is 88%. And that's a low number for us. We're normally in the mid-90s. So we're at 88% occupied in independent living. We're 90% sold. So 90% sold, 2% of those haven't moved in yet. So we're 88% occupied. But our pipeline beyond the 90% sold is kind of dry right now. We've got to fill that pipeline back up. And so we ask for your help in doing that. We have had several residents pass recently, and you're all aware of those. Some of them are very much a surprise, to be honest with you, and it's very sad to lose a member of our family. I'm not going to list any of the names, but we all know who they are, and we're going to miss them tremendously. We know that there are survivors left behind and spouses in some cases, and we want everybody to know that we love them and we're here for them, and that's why they moved to Friendship Village. We're here for everybody, and when you have significant life changes, like the loss of a spouse, the good thing about being at Friendship Village is that your routine is not turned upside down. You've built a group of friends that already know you, and you have a life already built at Friendship Village, and your life can go on with us here, and you're not left to rebuild everything all by yourself. So we are we're blessed to be able to do that for our residents. We know that this happens in the natural course of life, and so we feel for our residents who've lost their loved ones, and the rest of our residents who are here for you if you are one of those surviving spouses. So we're sorry for the loss, obviously, as a member of our own family, but we're also glad that we're here together to be able to wrap our, well, other than COVID-19, wrap our arms around everybody and make them feel welcome and loved and well taken care of. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm really excited to be back on the job, at home. I worked from home, but I also had my honey-do list from home, and sometimes we know what the priorities are at home when you're there. So now I'm not on the honey-do list during the day anymore, so I'm back in the office. The thing I love to do most is to walk around and see our residents, to see you, and I've already done that a little bit today, and continue to watch our progress on our construction project as we get ready to move in this fall into our new care center. We hope to move in there in December. That's our plan, and it looks like we're going to be right on track. Before that happens, we will have an open house so that you, as residents of independent living, will be able to walk through, see what it looks like before we move anybody in there, before anything gets contaminated potentially, or to at least keep it from getting contaminated. We'll walk everybody through there and let you take a look at what it looks like in there. You will be completely surprised and shocked at your world-class care center, which is part of your life care program that you bought into when you moved to Friendship Village. And I think you're going to be very pleased with what you see. And to be honest, I think most of you will wonder if it's even a nursing home or a care center, because it looks fantastic in there. It is truly a world-class facility, and it's part of your program. So I think you'll be excited. And when time comes, probably in November, toward the latter part of November, we'll probably be able to take tours in groups through the care center and let you see what it looks like before we move anybody in. I hope you have a great day today. I don't have anything else to report at this point in time. I'm happy to be back at the village. My family's healthy, everybody's doing well. My son that's in college tested negative before he left and tested negative when he got there. He's doing well, and everybody at home's doing well, and I appreciate all the thoughts and prayers that I received during that period of time. I never had any symptoms again, knock on wood, and I think everything's doing well now, and I'm really glad to be back. Good to see you again. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.